people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of what is to be the second fight, the rematch between Claressa Shields and Haney Gabriels, I've wanted a rematch with Gabriels ever since our first fight, according to Claressa Shields. The rematch itself seems like overkill for Claressa because in spite of that early scare, that early knockdown, she went on to win most of the rounds, dominating most of the fight. It was a fun fight to watch, but she clearly won it. Claressa Shields is making history again by opening up professional boxing at the brand new world-class Little Caesars Arena in the heart of Detroit, said Dimitri Salita, president of Salita Promotions. This is going to be her historic event in resurrecting the tradition of big-time championship events in Detroit in an electric rematch against current light heavyweight and heavyweight world champion Haney Gabriels. Tommy Hearns won his first world title at the Joe Louis Arena in 1980, and now in 2023, Claressa will electrify fans watching the fight at the arena live on DAZN in USA and Canada. I don't imagine that the second fight between Haney and Claressa is going to go any differently than the first one did, years afterwards. Years later, Haney Gabriels is an older and less active fighter than she was when she originally faced Claressa, boiling down to 160 pounds, a weight she hasn't made in many years.
I think the second fight is probably going to go a lot like the first one did.
The GOAT is bringing championship boxing back to Detroit, said Shields. After my historic victory over Savannah Marshall in the UK, I wanted a true homecoming fight in the US. I'm really excited to headline the first ever at Little Caesars Arena. Haney Gabriels knocked me down in round one in our first fight, and I've wanted the rematch ever since to settle that score. She's a 4-time world champion, but she's fighting the GOAT, who's a 13-time world champion and a 3-time undisputed champion. This is a big, important fight for me and will be another great fight for women's boxing. I'm ready to defend my titles and win in dramatic fashion in Detroit.
Well, this is a chance for Claressa Shields' supporters to show up and show out in Detroit, show their support.
And hopefully they do, though I'd be lying to you if I told you that I'm as excited for this fight, this Haney Gabriels fight, as I would have been for a Raquel Miller fight.
That fight makes a lot more sense to me than this one. I would have preferred to see Haney Gabriels take on Franchon Cruz or Savannah Marshall, maybe Christina Hammer if she's even still boxing anymore.
I would have preferred to see Haney Gabriels come down in weight to mix it up with one of them, whereas with Claressa, Raquel Miller's the one fighter, the one unbeaten fighter that she hasn't taken on yet, the one unbeaten fighter that she has history with but hasn't fought.
Given Raquel Miller's age, I'm starting to wonder if they're ever going to fight. Raquel Miller's close to 40, though she may not look it.
This fight, this rematch that Claressa's about to have seems to be a Dimitri Salita promotion by way of DAZN, but still a Dimitri Salita promotion. And there doesn't seem to be any involvement from Matchroom. Thus, I don't expect any of Matchroom's Valkyries to actually participate on the card, participate on the show. I have expected that Alicia Baumgartner might make an appearance, but because it's a Dimitri Salita promotion,
and because she's a Matchroom fighter,
fighting under the Matchroom banner, I don't imagine she'll make an appearance on the card.
And the relevance of that is what the overall card is going to look like. Without any involvement from Matchroom, I don't expect to see any Matchroom fighters on the undercard.
Dimitri Salita himself, he's got a stable of fighters, a couple of guys, and I imagine they'll be making appearances on the show, but fight fans at large, they're not that familiar with them now, are they?
See how it breaks down.
This rematch is a byproduct of Claressa effectively cleaning house anywhere in between 154, 160, and 168 pounds. She's already shared the ring with most, though not all, but most of the relevant fighters at or around these weights.
I don't imagine that she's going to make for this fight this rematch with Hannah what she could have made running it back with Savannah in the United Kingdom, but she was insistent. If she's gonna fight Savannah for a second time, it's gotta be in America.
That wasn't about to happen because Boxer, who promoted the first fight between them, they're based out of the UK. They're not going to bankroll a fight that's set to happen across the pond.
Having won the first fight from Savannah Marshall, taking the WBO title from her, you could argue that she could have negotiated for more money for a second Savannah Marshall fight than what she stands to make for a second Hannah Gabriel's fight.
To some degree, there is an intrinsic value to having this big homecoming fight after having become once again an undisputed champion abroad. The intrinsic value of a homecoming fight, even if it's not for as much money as you could have made.
Is that to consider?
Well, as stated, I don't imagine that Hannah Gabriel's can change much.
Don't imagine that the second fight is going to go any differently than the first one did. Look for this in June.
Just because, and I'm gonna put this out there, just because you have belts, that don't make you an A side. But sometimes people get, you know what I mean. It's like this. Belts or no belts, Tank is that dude.
Awesome, he's the A side, great. Then, as the A side, isn't the onus on Tank? Isn't the onus on Gervonta Davis to make Shakur Stevenson an offer, or Devin Haney if he wins, if he beats Vasyl Lomachenko, or if Vasyl Lomachenko beats him? Isn't the responsibility on the A side fighter to make the offers?
Because no one, including Leonard Ellerbe, is expecting Gervonta to cross over to Top Rank to fight on ESPN.
So what are you going to pay them to come to you?
You know what I mean? And so when it comes to, people don't understand like how that kind of stuff works.
They understand it just fine. It's not advanced algebra or trigonometry. We get it.
We do.
But what are you going to do if your guy knocks out Ryan?
What big fights? What other high-profile fights is he going to fight in after that?
Oh, but at the highest level, this is how it goes. It's like Aaron was strategic in setting that whole thing up there for his guys. You know, he has a bunch of lightweights. Guys are coming up. So in his mindset, like any other promoter would do, I'm not knocking what he did. He's going to do everything he possibly can to keep that over right there with his guys, to give them opportunity. The fuck is he going to go try to make a deal? Well, he can't offer us no deal anyway.
No one is expecting him to. No one is expecting Bob Arum to make Gervonta Davis a deal to come over to his side of things. Your fighter's the A-side fighter, and there's more to being an A-side than just beating your chest and repeating yourself.
That's all Leonard Ellerbe seems to do.
If you want the fight to be on Showtime, then you pay to make it so.
You do it, Mr. A-side.
Go try to make a deal for something that ain't for a bunch of money to even tempt him to go do that. No, he's trying to build his young fighters up there, you know. And as it relates to this is kind of funny, and I'm gonna put this out there too. It's gonna piss some people off, but Bob Arum don't even think he's the best fighter in the stable.
He being whom? He being Devin Haney?
Yeah, he don't.
Perhaps he doesn't. Perhaps he feels it's Vasyl Lomachenko, or maybe he feels it's Shakur Stevenson. A lot of people do.
Which even still is besides the point.
The point is, if you're going to tell every man, woman, and his dog that Gervonta Davis is the A-side fighter to every fighter at or around these weights, that comes with a responsibility, you know.
Yeah,
a responsibility to make fights happen. That if you're not going to accept offers from Bob Arum,
And nobody expects you to.
the offers to do these fights, they've got to come from you. Daddy Warbucks. You're the A-side, aren't you?
To fight Devin Haney. To fight Shakur Stevenson.
I knew it wouldn't take Leonard Ellerbe all that long to get back to his old shtick as soon as he crawled from under his rock.
Haney's, Bill Haney himself, he's not taking this stuff lying down, you know. All this Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney talk.
Yeah, a little fat. Man, get on the scale, man. Get on the scale and fight the next day, man. All that talking about what way and all that, trying to rally people in, man. Get out of here. Hey, what Tank little fat ass wear when he come up here? I know y'all deal with him. What is little fat ass wear? You know Tank? You know Tank? Guarantee his little fat ass wear 38. Yeah, Tank. Yeah, we know where you shop at. Nick. We know where you shop at. Hey, listen, ain't nobody scared of you. You know what I'm saying? I know Tank. I don't know. They spend a lot of money with it. He wears 38, so you told me already. He wears 38s. No, he wears, huh? We about the same size, though, huh? Yeah. 38s. Yeah, you know, everybody else might be scared of you. You know, we ain't scared of you. Nigga. You know that nigga be lying like a mother. Talking about I look old, nigga. You know what I'm saying? I'm still skinning them off, man. I just pass on them. I'm still skinning, but I'm passing now. Still skinning them off, but I'm passing them off. Yeah. Believe that suck ass talking about. Yeah, what I look like, I look old, nigga. Yeah, I look old enough. I look old enough, but young enough to pass on your mama, nigga.
Banter between the teams, banter between the camps, all this talk of A sides and B sides and
Same old shit.
Frank Warren's lapdog, Brev Sonny, caught wind of Leonard Ellerbe's comments about belts and how they don't necessarily dictate who the A-side fighter is, saying, correct, when Kambosos dethroned Teofimo Lopez, if he had then defended his belts against Tank, Tank would still be the heavy A-side in that fight. You can have all the belts you like. It's about people knowing who you are and being willing to part with their money to watch you.
Maybe that's true. Maybe Tank would have been the A-side to George Kambosos. Maybe he would have been, but he never actually made him an offer.
So what does it matter? Moreover, when you don't offer your opponents, your more high-profile opponents, a certain level of respect, you know they're not going to play ball. And if they don't play ball, you have no fight.
That's relevant to this conversation because what exactly is Gervonta Davis going to do beyond the Ryan Garcia fight if he wins, if he knocks him out? And a lot of people expect him to.
You're expecting these other kids that are out there to put up with your crap? I can tell you that they're not. George Kambosos caught wind of Brev Sonny's comments and replied by saying, I don't think so, buddy. I had just come off of beating Lopez. My name was blowing up everywhere, and I was never going to take a step backwards and be a B-side after beating the top guy then. I ain't a sucker, especially when I had two whole countries behind me to do 45,000 in a stadium.
You hear that? He wasn't going to bow down or bend over for Gervonta Davis.
To which Brev Sonny replied, nothing personal, just an example. Your name was blowing up on the back of the win, but Gervonta Davis was and is a bigger attraction. There's no reflection on you. In my opinion, if you were negotiating with him and you put your foot down to get more than 50% because of your belts,
You get the gist of it.
Brev Sonny's essentially communicating is that being a champion or a unified champion or even an undisputed champion doesn't necessarily make you the A-side fighter to a Gervonta Davis, for example. And while that might be true in part,
You've still got to get those high-profile fighters to play ball. If you want to continue to do big numbers beyond the Ryan Garcia fight,
you do have to try to entice those other fighters to fight you. You do have to treat them with a certain level of respect, because if you don't, you know what happens?
What?
You go back to doing just under 200,000 pay-per-view buys fighting nobodies.
just under or just over, but you go back to doing what you were doing before because you're not going to do with everybody what you're about to do with Ryan.
Maybe you do 500,000 pay-per-view buys with Ryan. Maybe you do 1 million. The disconnect is that moving forward, Gervonta will be able to do that with everybody.
He won't.
You can go back to fighting the Isaac Cruzes and Rolly Romeros of the world, and you'll do with them now what you were doing before.
Truth, I don't even think Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney should bother with Gervonta Davis. I think any fighter that isn't a PBC fighter should shun him altogether.
It's not like he's making any of these guys an offer, and if he by some chance did offer them something, what's he gonna offer them? A cock in the booty deal like the one that Ryan took with rehydration clauses in it?
A catch weight, a rehydration clause, a one-way rematch clause.
Ryan isn't as accomplished as these other fighters, as these other kids. Shakur Stevenson's a 2-division champion. Devin Haney, he's undisputed.
They're not going to put up with that crap from you. He might.
Yeah, he might, but they won't. Not that Gervonta Davis is pursuing fights with these other fighters anyway. He's not pursuing a fight with Shakur or Devin.
Yeah, a certain section of the boxing community might be calling for those fights, but for a long time they were calling for Gervonta to fight Vasyl Lomachenko, and he never did that.
He's not about to do this. It's all much ado about nothing.
Rehydration clause. What you thought about that? You know, that was a big topic because, you know, Gervonta said he's bigger than me. Like, he can make it to 170, and if I'm not mistaken, like, I think it's just 10 pounds.
That's something. I ain't gonna lie. That's some bullshit on Tank part because come on, bro. Tank walked around big. Tank walks around real big too, bro. Like, we saw him out of camp. Tank walks around big too. So that's some bullshit too, you know. But listen, this boxing, bro, it's all about the advantage. Every Tank is the A side, look like, and so it looked like every advantage you can get, that's what you go take. So, but I definitely think it's a bullshit. Ryan ain't that much bigger than Tank. If they, without them out of camp and stuff like that, I feel like Tank might actually be the bigger person. Like, weight wise, obviously Ryan is taller, but I feel like Tank is the person, the bigger person.
And that's because the catch weight and the rehydration clause, those weight stipulations, have more to do with handicapping the opponent than evening the playing field. I mean, Gervonta Davis has fought at 140 pounds before.
The Mario Barrios fight.
You didn't catch weight him. Rehydration claws him, so why are you doing all that to Ryan? Is it because you perceive him as a greater threat to you than Mario Barrios? And we can disguise it behind creative language that Gervonta's the A-side and he wants every advantage, but that's just another way of saying they negotiated this fight like a bunch of fucking cowards.
I think Regis is right.
He is.
I think the weight clauses are just a bunch of bullshit.
They are.
Big part of the reason this fight don't mean to me what it might mean to someone else. I mean, it's not a segue to anything. I don't expect that the winner of the fight is going to move on and face Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney.
The way the fight was negotiated, that you had to put all these stipulations, weight stipulations, just to bring it into fruition. I don't think Devin Haney's going to go for that, or Shakur Stevenson.
Why would they?
The only reason Ryan went for all of that stuff is because he doesn't want to fight those guys any more than you do.
He was Devin Haney's mandatory challenger once, and he chose to walk away. I didn't forget.
Ryan doesn't want to fight those guys any more than Gervonta Davis does. They're fighting each other because to each other, they're each other's most lucrative option.
I think they view each other, respectively, as the least risk for the most reward. If you're Ryan and you had the chance to fight Devin Haney back when he was on the same platform as you, then why didn't you take him on?
Too much risk for not enough money. The same applies to Gervonta Davis. Why risk it with Shakur Stevenson? Why risk it with Devin Haney when Ryan Garcia's right there and he can get you more money than they can?
To me, this looks like a joint effort to freeze those fighters out. The disconnect is that freezing them out will be short-lived, because beyond this Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis fight, those kids got more options than these two do.
Win or lose against Vasyl Lomachenko, Devin Haney's likely going to move up to 140 pounds, and when he does, he can fight Teofimo Lopez, Arnold Barboza.
He's got options, and he can make money with any of those fights.
And if Vasyl Lomachenko wins and he becomes the lightweight division's undisputed champion, he can fight Shakur Stevenson.
And if Shakur Stevenson fights him and beats him and becomes this division's undisputed champion, all the lightweight talent and all those ranked standings will be funneled to him. Will be funneled to Top Rank.
Believe me, nobody's starving because they can't get a Gervonta Davis fight, because Gervonta Davis doesn't fight anybody anyway.
Most of the time he doesn't. This is arguably his first high-profile fight.
If he doesn't do what he's got to do to get these other kids in the ring, what other high-profile fights is he going to have? A rematch with Rolly? A rematch with Isaac Cruz? What's that going to do at the box office?
Not what this fight is about to. Whatever it does.
They don't actually need him. Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. They don't actually need a Gervonta Davis fight, because not fighting him...
They're not starving, you know. Both of those kids are seven-figure fighters. Devin Haney is a seven-figure fighter. So is Shakur Stevenson.
It's not like they can't make fights for those guys. They can. In fact, they are.
Gervonta Davis hasn't bottlenecked the lightweight division or the super lightweight division. He don't control all the action at those weights.
They can live without him, do just fine without him. But beyond this Ryan Garcia fight, what is Gervonta Davis going to do without them?
A little over or a little under 200,000 pay-per-view buys?
Maybe less?
Okay. You have fun with that,
Mr. A-Side.